Welcome, everyone. My name is Carlos. I'm the country representative of EURAXESS here in China. I want to start off by wishing everyone a Happy New Year, 新年快乐. I am very delighted to have a distinguished panel of researchers from all across Northeast Asia, including two from China, and EU science diplomats also representing the EU all across this region, and my two colleagues from Japan and from Korea, joining all together to celebrate the contributions that women all over the world, but especially in our region, make to science.
Good morning, everyone who is joining us from Europe, and a good afternoon to the Asian attendees. I'm Yuriterika Magyar, country representative of EURAXESS Japan. Again, a very warm welcome to you all, and let's just say a few words about why we've come together. This International Day of Women and Girls in Science is actually an inspiring event that aims to show how important it is to support and encourage each other and the next generation to engage in STEM field and other research areas. The science counselors and the professors today will talk about why it is important to encourage women and girls in science and what kind of advice can be given to peers and emerging researchers interested in pursuing these careers. So with that, I would like to give the floor to Tomasz, my Korean colleague. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. I'm Tomasz. I'm based in Seoul. I'm like Judith and Carlis, EURAXESS representative here in Korea. I'm the youngest hub among those three. We started 6 years ago. Our aim, as in every hub, is to encourage and to promote Europe as a research destination for scientists based in Korea in all fields of science. I mean, from social sciences and humanities to engineering, STEM, and so on. So we try to bring all those ideas together to Europe. And yes, as you did mention, today we are here because of the Women's Day, that is 8th of March. Yeah, it's 8th of March, whatever. But this is something that is, I would say, not addressed enough because imbalance in gender, not only in academia, but also in industry and so on, the material leave and so on. These are issues that should be addressed carefully but loudly. Really, I'm so happy to have all those speakers here, all of you, to share your experience, your private experience, personal experience, as well as academic experience, basically to raise awareness about all the issues that you can encounter, that you have encountered in your academic and professional life. Thank you. And I guess the floor goes to the science officer from Korea, Mrs. Kim Ju-young. A good friend of mine, Mrs. Kim, if you can share a couple of words about yourself, about EU-Korea collaboration in science. We are the only one. We are the ones. We are the ones that are here in this agenda. We are associated with Horizon Europe, meaning that Korean researchers will be able, or are able already, to benefit directly from Horizon Fund. They can receive funding directly, no co-funds required. There are some specific calls only for Europeans, but that doesn't really matter. Basically, Korea is treated like EU member states and associated countries because Korea is an associated country. So I would like to ask Mrs. Kim, a good friend of mine, Ju-young, to share a couple of thoughts about your story, because you used to work for National Research Foundation until 2014, I believe, and then you joined the EU delegation, where you have been promoting EU-Korea cooperation in science ever since. Mrs. Kim, Ju-young, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, Narprakash, and thanks, Tomasz. Can you hear me well? Okay, you already talked about me a lot, so I have nothing to add. Thank you so much. It is my great honor to deliver opening remarks to the International Day of Women and Girls in Science event today on behalf of the EU. I'm so glad to take part in this valuable, interesting, and timely discussion that is empowering women in STEM field. I think I'm chosen as the first speaker since I am an Asian woman working for the European Union and STEM policy area for a long time. I received the same question from many people. How could you start working for the EU, particularly in STEM, as a woman? Whenever I met people in person, they say, "Oh, I thought you are a man." I fully understand their stereotype that a science officer is most likely a man. In Korea, there are approximately 80,000 female members from 80 associations only for female researchers in STEM areas. They study very hard and also put great efforts into improving their research environment for women researchers. Thanks to our women ambassador, Maria Castillo Fernandez, the EU delegation to the Republic of Korea has closely worked with women researchers through various events. We co-organized the EU-Korea Women in Science Forum in 2023 and several roundtables with European women ambassadors and high levels from the female associations to share the state of play and discuss ways how to improve the working environment for women researchers in STEM areas. Sometimes we face a solid wall or ceiling that is too high to reach or too hard to break. Although it may not be apparent on the surface, we must always recognize and be aware that half of the world population is experiencing now. Gender issues should not be underestimated or less evaluated than any other issues in terms of science technology. It can be my issue or our family issues. So the EU has committed to promoting gender equality in research and innovation because many structural barriers to gender equality in research innovation persist. In part of European Commission Gender Equality Strategy 2020 to 2025, providing more concrete and tangible measures to enhance gender equality across the Horizon Europe programs. I think a systematic approach to this gender equality matter is critical and very influential across the research society. As most of you may know, the Republic of Korea became the first associate country to Horizon Europe in Asia. I'm traveling here and there across the country to deliver presentations on Horizon Europe. I should deliver key messages, including the importance and necessity of having a gender equality plan as an eligibility criterion for all public bodies, higher education institutions, and research organizations from EU member states and associate countries, including Korea, wishing to participate in Horizon Europe. It sounded an alarm in the Korean Research Society. The organizations and also governments looked into their organization regulations and tried to improve gender equality because it is essential criteria. But that's not enough. We need to do more together. Following this trend, we plan to work harder to contribute changes in the Korean research environment, equally men and women researchers. Investing in potential of women and girls is an investment in our society, and that is responsibility of men and boys as much as women and girls. I think this event will perfectly contribute to the cooperation among even our close friend China, Japan, and Korea, as well as research cooperation via Europe. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kim. Thank you very much, Juyong. That was really great and also encouraging and not only informative, but meaningful. Yes, this message should be spread around, not only in Asia, in Europe, and other corners of the world. So thank you for your really important message, and I will pass the floor to Judith, I guess, with your I don't want to say yours, but the science counselor in Japan, in Tokyo, has the floor.
Thank you so much, Tomasz. I would like to invite Gijs Berends, First Counselor, Head of Science, Innovation, Digital, and Other EU Policies section at the delegation of the European Union to Japan, to deliver his presentation about EU support for women in science, examples of cooperation with Japan.
Good day, everyone. My name is Gijs Berends. I'm the head of the Science and Innovation section at the EU delegation. It's a pleasure to be with you today online. I would like to thank EURAXESS for organizing this event. Last year we did a similar event here in Japan, so it's really nice to see that we're now expanding in the region. In my remarks, I wanted to start by letting you know that in the European Union, the European Commission, we have a new Commissioner for Research and Innovation. Her name is Mrs. Zaharjeva. And I'm mentioning this because right at the outset of her mandate, she gave political backing to the idea that more needs to be done to achieve gender equality. Now, all new commissioners have to go through a hearing in the European Parliament to be approved for the portfolio that he or she will take up. And at the start of the hearing of Commissioner Zaharjeva, she made the following statement. She said, "Women outnumber men at graduate levels, yet hold just 1 in 4 of the highest academic positions. And it's worse in innovation. In only 1% of the projects that the European Innovation Council granted, the companies were managed by, or the CEOs were, women." Then she said, "This is not due to lack of talent, but to structural barriers. I will present an action plan on women in R&I and startups." Now, I think it's useful for you to know that such an action plan is coming and that there is, right from the start of the new commission, that there's political attention dedicated to this topic. Now, of course, in the past, quite a few initiatives have already been taken. You're perhaps familiar with Horizon Europe. It's one of the largest funding programs for research and innovation in the world. And funding under this program has been used to help over 200 academic and research organizations to adopt so-called gender equality plans. Now, these plans help research institutions to implement a set of actions towards gender equality, but this is not just some casual document. It has to be a public document, signed off by the top management of the institution, and then it has to be disseminated within the institution. Additionally, it should have dedicated resources to implement it, and then it should include arrangements for data collection and monitoring. And then finally, it needs to be supported by training and capacity building. Now, in recent years, under Horizon Europe, we have been going further to accelerate institutional change. For instance, since 2022, having such a gender equality plan, to have it in place is an eligibility criterion for any institution that wishes to participate in Horizon Europe, so one of the largest funding programs in the world. This means that also it will apply to organizations from Japan, should the EU and Japan successfully conclude the currently ongoing negotiations on Japan's possible association to Horizon Europe. And for Korea, this is, for instance, already the case. Another example of an EU policy initiative is the development of a so-called STEM manifesto. And here the idea is that it helps to ensure collaboration between STEM-oriented high schools, academia, public authorities, industry stakeholders, that they work together to address gender disparities in STEM. Now, there are many other policy initiatives that I could mention, but I'm mentioning this manifesto because it allows me to turn to some activities here in Japan. The previous research commissioner, Commissioner Ivanova, she came to Japan last of April, and there she met with the W7 Japan Steering Committee. Now, you may recall that the Women 7 or W7 is an official engagement group of the G7 summit already since 2018. And there are civil society organizations, they come together to promote proposals on gender equality and on women's rights to governments within the G7 process. Now, during the commissioners' meeting with the W7 Japan Steering Committee, in the presence of the Cabinet Office and of the Japanese funding agencies, the JSPS, Commissioner Ivanova extended an invitation to endorse these principles that are laid down in the STEM manifesto that we're working on. And she then also explained how this manifesto's development is being funded again by Horizon Europe. So what we did is we offered to bring our project coordinators in touch with Japanese counterparts who might be interested in following these same principles. Now, the W7 is an important institution to us, also thanks to the Japanese presidency of the G7 in 2023, because during the G7 Gender Equality Ministerial Meeting that was held in Nikko in Japan in June of 2023, W7 was invited as an official delegation for the first time in its history. And the EU, of course, warmly welcomed that, and we actively participated in the discussions. W7 Japan, so the Japan delegation, they drafted a communique that they put together through discussions with experts from 38 countries. And then this finalized document was presented to the Prime Minister of Japan at the time, Mr. Kishida, so ahead of the G7 Hiroshima summit. So we thought these were all very important developments that we also actively participated in. Now, let me conclude by referring you to a very useful document. There is a tool which is funded by the European Commission and that shows statistics on women in science. And this tool is called Shift Figures. It offers a lot of data on around 88 indicators, and then the statisticians are looking at data from all the G20 countries. Now, the last time this was published was in 2021, and this year we're expecting a new version, so it will be updated very soon, and we will be happy to announce its publication as soon as it comes out, because it may be a very useful reference document for you or anyone who's participating today. Now, I'd like to end my presentation by wishing you a very productive event. Thank you very much for allowing me to be part of it, and I hope you have a very good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Heis. And indeed, it is very exciting to work together with the EU delegation in Tokyo and the female colleagues in DGRTD. I would like to invite my colleague Carlos to introduce his speakers from China. Thank you so much. Carlos?
You, Judith. Thank you to the EU science diplomats in Korea and Japan for your introduction to the situation and the overall kind of political background to what we're talking about today. But now we've come to the main speakers, the speakers who will tell us about what it is like on the ground. And starting off is Dr. Wang Jing, who is an assistant professor at the School of Health and Wellbeing at Panzhihua University in Sichuan, the province of China. Wang Jing, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. Thanks very much for organizing this webinar. And I really appreciate this opportunity to share my own experience and hear what's happening in Japan and Korea. And so today my topic is called Gender in Nursing, Teaching, Researching, and Challenging Expectations in a Small University in China. And what I'm going to talk about is paradox that I have observed when I start teaching in this small nursing school. And I would also explore this paradox and discuss how it impacts the students, and as an educator, what we can do to change or challenge these expectations in the classroom. And before we start, I'm going to have an outline of what I'm going to talk about, the introduction and a little bit introduction to myself, and about the paradox I witnessed, and then what I did in the classroom. And so first of all, who am I? And I am a cultural medical anthropologist, and I received my PhD in anthropology from the United States. And currently I'm teaching in a small university in China. And my research focused on health issues from a socio-cultural perspective. For example, during my doctoral research, I did research on aging, health, and culture among the Tibetan elders. And currently, I'm working on postpartum health issues among Chinese women. And I'm also fascinated by the parenting practices and its impact on children's well-being in China as well. But why I was drawn to anthropology was because its ability to give voice to marginalized people and also to challenge and to dispel stereotypes. And that's one of the reasons when I returned from the United States back to China after completing my studies, and I was kind of like shocked by the sexism and ageism in China, but that's not the main topic. But another thing, the one thing I want to talk about is the something like I was really surprised when I returned to teach in a small university, that I've seen this paradox, this contradiction about how like the faculty members mostly are women, and they're mostly highly educated and accomplished in their field as doctors and nurses. But the message to the students are that what they need to do are oftentimes like focused on their being feminine and being obedient. And so what that means is that they are taught to overemphasize their looks and compliance rather than their intellectual and professional capabilities. And what I see in this paradox is this deep-rooted stereotype about nursing as a profession, and it is perceived as something feminine. It's a feminine profession, and women and girls are naturally good caregivers because they're nurturing and they're subservient, and so this both what I've witnessed as this paradox and this stereotypes, they are kind of like in the at the college level, higher education, you can see they're kind of mutually reinforcing the stereotype, and then what I'm seeing in the impact of such very gendered, expectations of the female nursing students is that a lot of times they are taught to overemphasize their appearance, to be neat and pretty, instead of like to focus on developing their skills, and then which also lead to their limited career ambitions. For example, they are taught to view the career in nursing as kind of like a temporary path before they get married and to become wife and mothers, and instead of like viewing it as important profession to pursue. And also this overly emphasis on the compliance and obedience that also makes the women or the female students to conform to norms and to instead of like having their own agency to advocate for themselves in the future, if they're working in the hospitals, like advocate for their patients, right? And so what after witnessing this, and as an anthropologist, and I really want to kind of like challenge this kind of stereotypes, and essentially I become this weird professor at the school who want to discuss the things that are normally not discussed at the school or in the classroom. I encourage the students to talk about the things that they care about, talk about the things that are not permitted in other classrooms. And I create this very a safe environment for the students to talk. And we besides like the textbooks and the readings I cite them, we also discuss about movies, podcasts, and real life events. And I encourage them to be more critical in the things they encounter in their school or in their everyday life. And then one thing I found especially effective is for them to act out stuff in class. So I assigned a lot of some of my assignments in the classroom is to have them act out scenes. For example, in my health health promotion class, and then we asked them to kind of like act out the type of health promotion events, and then it is during those assignments they did a very good job, and they kind of like being really creative to do the things that to talk about some of the things that they seldom they are not given the opportunity to talk about. So, for example, here in this picture is a student in my, it's actually a group of students in the class. They're acting out awareness campaign for sexual education. And then it's like a sex education is kind of like still a taboo in the college, at least in the small university where I teach. And so they chose this kind of like topic that's not oftentimes discussed, and talk about like how girls and women need to protect, need to get more sex education, and how to protect themselves from the sexual abuse, and so it is really inspiring to see that. And so, to conclude, what I want to say is that this paradox I just discussed reflects this deep-rooted stereotypes about gender, about nursing, but like as educators, like we can do something to help break this cycle of gender stereotypes, and by creating an environment that encourages students to think critically, and to have a place for self-expression. And I think like by doing this, we can break this cycle of gender stereotypes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Wang. We will have a question and answer period at the end after all the speakers have spoken. So start thinking of the questions you will want to ask to the speakers. But the next one coming up is Cola Puccini, who is from Italy, but works here in China, is located here in Beijing with me at the School of Environment at Tsinghua University. She's a postdoctoral research fellow there. Cola, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your introduction, and thank you a lot for inviting me today to be part of the EURAXESS editions for International Women's in Science. I'm going to present my experience as a woman in science at Tsinghua University, and overall my experience as a researcher here in China. And my presentation would be comprised through the following contents. First, an introduction, then a research background about my experience, and also what is the role of women in science, at least from a personal experience, and gender in the discipline. So what are the challenges and opportunities for women in my field? So just like to give like a short background about my academic experience. My bachelor's were at University of Milan, and then my master's and the PhD were at Shanghai Jiao Tong University in the field of environmental science and resource management. And then in January 2024, I started a position as a research postdoc fellow at Tsinghua University. So my field of studies is related to solid waste management, carbon footprint analysis, material flow analysis, life cycle assessment, circular economy, green growth, and sustainable development. And through these years, I have different publications in this field. So if anyone is interested, they can access to these studies. And as today the topic is exactly international women's in science, I want to give a short overview of my research team. Currently, we are around 43% women and 57% men. In fact, for many in the at the School of Environment or in the field of engineering, it is believed that the male component is higher than the female. But for my own experience at Shanghai Jiaotun University and at Tsinghua, actually there was like still like a high rate of female presence, which I found it very good. However, I have to say that all my mentors and advisors at higher positions were mainly male. And currently in our team, we have one associate professor besides our leader, which is female, and 4 postdocs females, and around 8 to 9 graduates female students. So for my postdoc research, I obtained the NSFC funding, and in fact, one question which rises is how women can actually access to these fundings provided by the Chinese government, or at least in the field of science, is there a ratio to women's to men? But according to the reports, we don't have like a clear results on what is the rate for female to male, and I believe it is the selection. It is mainly based on the research topic. However, considering that the highest leadership positions are predominantly males or man positions, I believe it is still the access to the male part is higher than the female one. I would like to introduce a little bit to the research that we are conducting. So currently I'm conducting 2 main research projects. The first one is about the global flow accounting of plastics. So we provide accounting and impact of plastics along the life cycle, from virgin resin production to waste management disposals. And we also account the emissions factors. For instance, we had collected data for inventories along the life cycles of plastics. And this is an example of an extract of the results. And based on this, we can see that, for instance, 98% of the global plastics is still generated from fossil fuels. And of course, I don't want to take much of your time about my current research, but this is just like a sort of introductions of the types of studies that we are conducting in here. And another research project, which is in cooperation with the University Studio of Milan, it's the standardization of plastic footprints metrics, a comprehensive benchmark approach which compare plastics production and waste disposal from the virgin resin production to the waste management disposal. And it make a comparison between Europe and China. So we have accounted the footprint metrics for different types of plastics. And then we also invited different experts to participate in the benchmark and provided policy recommendation on how we can harmonize the different types of plastics along the life cycle. And this graph shows a schematic framework for the standard benchmark for the global harmonized plastic footprint system by providing a case study of Europe and China. And to be brief on here, based on our studies, actually we can see that for different types of plastics, we have a higher sustainability in Europe comparing to China, for instance, in terms of the carbon footprints and also for the energy consumption, water use, and land use. However, when we consider, for instance, the innovative solutions for plastics, China is emerging in terms of this metric. So to go back to the main aspects for my experience here as a scientist, actually as a young scientist in China. Like in 2021, actually, the government data shows that there are at least around 46% of women in science and technology. However, there are gender-based barriers. And we can see also from the previous presentation and from the talk and the insightful aspects that Professor Jinwan already talked in her presentation. There are different gender-based barriers that have to be faced, but we all need to raise and talk about. In fact, although we have more and more women in STEM, there is just a very small fraction of women that is taking a senior and a leading role. And in fact, I listed a number of challenges, and there is indeed a gender gap in leadership role. And in fact, there are like very few positions for women at a very high scientific and leadership position. And I think this is not just for China, it's also for other regions in the world, even the ones that have like a higher equal gender perspective. And then another challenge is the work-life balance. In fact, one aspect that we also need to talk about is there are like traditional gender roles in different societies, especially in the in certain Asian societies or Middle Eastern, African ones, where actually for many women it's really hard to find like the right balance between career and family responsibilities. In fact, here for China, as you might know, we don't have anymore the one-child policy. That means also as women are more and more like promoted to get more kids, then this will also affect their career perspective, especially in academia. And there are also limited access to mentorship position comparing to a male. And there are certain traditional and societal norms that actually discourage women from pursuing careers in science. However, I also see that there are certain opportunities, and in fact, there are different policies that are implemented by the government to promote gender equality, and also growing recognitions of women contribution, at least in the engineering field. And there is also more awareness about women's role, and this is also due to the developments. So one of the strategies that we can do is to promote mentorship programs and encourage a work-life balance policy, increasing visibility of role models, and very importantly, address cultural barriers. Thank you very much, and happy International Women's Day in Science, especially in vulnerable places in the world. I hope we can create a more inclusive academic field for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Hosseini. This concludes the contributions from China. As I said, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentations. And now the floor is going on to Japan.
Thank you, Carlos. And again, all my gratitude to the China-based researchers. Very informative presentations indeed. Let us proceed with the Japan section. We are lucky to have two researchers from the University of Tokyo, one of the most prestigious organizations, universities in Japan. Let me just say that both will be present in real time during the Q&A, and your questions could be submitted in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I trust that whether you're connecting through a phone or on a PC, the panels are still at the bottom. So please send us your questions in the Q&A box and they will be answered during the very brief Q&A. So let me just share the next presentation with you. Akiko Takeo, who is a research associate at the Earthquake Research Institute at the University of Tokyo, will talk about fieldwork life in Japan as a female researcher. So let me share her video with you.
Hello, I'm Akiko Takeo of Earthquake Research Institute, the University of Tokyo. Today, I'm talk about my fieldwork life as a woman researcher. So this is my self-introduction. I entered the University of Tokyo in 2005 and went to a PhD course in 2009 and got PhD degree in 2014 and became a postdoctoral researcher for 1 year and got a permanent position in 2015. I got children in 2019 and 2022. These are my research topics, like how the plate tectonics works, or where and how earthquake occurs, by putting instrument in the ocean or on the land to get data in the real field, and to understand or how this oceanic plate moves, or how the earthquake occurred in the subduction zone between the plate interface or at the volcano. This is my experience when I was a undergraduate student. Actually, I tried many kinds of researches, like the computer simulation or lab experiment or putting instrument in the field. And I finally realized that the fieldwork is best for me because I found more than 100 earthquakes in 3 days. That is not small, not negligible, but no one realized because the process is very slow and the shaking is very small. So the only solution to find them was to put the instrument on the field by myself. And this experience was why I chose fieldwork. So this is my experience during the master course, and explain why I'm still in the academic. Actually, I tried job hunting, but the atmosphere of job hunting in Japan is very unique and not acceptable for me. And also, I got scholarship from the SPS, and the support was very important. And also, no one in my family denied when I tried to go PhD course. At that time, there were many academic posts existed. Unfortunately, not now, so it was kind of why. But at that time, I believe that it's not so difficult to take academic post. So there is higher obstacle for job hunting and no obstacle for taking PhD for me. These are experiences during doctoral course and postdoc. I went to US twice, only for 2 months for each, in the East Coast when I was doctoral course, and to the West Coast when I was to postdoc. And I don't talk about the detail, but these experiences were important for me to understand the difference between earthquake research in Japan and earthquake research in US. And these experiences improved my presentation for getting permanent position. So is being a man a disadvantage or advantage? I by myself didn't realize any disadvantage when I was a student, but maybe it's hard to find friends or hard to find appropriate advisor when you have troubles specific for women. So I hope the number of women increases in future. And of course, we need to consider when to get child, if you want to get child or need to take longer parental leave, and there are troubles like nausea or related to breastfeeding if you're women. So I just want to talk about my two experiences. My supervisor suggested me to go abroad as a postdoc when I got PhD, and I said no because I want to get married and get child in Japan. I understand it's hard to say no, but yeah, I just want to say that I said no. And there was one great advice I got from senior colleague. You cannot get child if you consider the timing. And this one was also important because otherwise, I think I still don't have a child. So these are experiences as a faculty and whether I can continue field work or not. I still doing field work, but it's not so simple. I had to ask my colleague to recover instrument from the mountain when I got pregnant. I didn't consider the timing, so the instrument was on the mountain. And also I went to field work 11 times after getting my first child, and with keeping breastfeeding, it was very hard work. I don't recommend. And now I have two children. I have to consider how my husband and the two children survived. So when I go to field work, so many supports are required. Not only by your husband, but also by your family, like my mother in my case, or the technical staff in the institute and the collaborators. But for me, the most important thing is the knowledge and budget for outsourcing. So this person in the photo has a technician in a private company, and he can do almost all their thing in the field that I need to do. Probably better than me. So it's very important to find this kind of person who we can ask the field work. And I think many efforts before getting pregnant is important. It's hard to find. For my case, I found him after getting pregnant, but it's very easier if I can find this support before getting pregnant. So finally, what do we need as a minority? I formed an exchange network in 2021 in University of Tokyo. Now in the Slack, there are more than 300 students, postdocs, and faculty, mostly women, but it's good. There are several men. And we exchange our experiences, questions, and ideas through the Slack or Zoom meeting several times in the month. And obviously, the frequently asked question is when to get the third or the second. So this kind of network should exist for each university, I think, because we are minority, we cannot talk in each institute so often. So to summarize, I think we can continue research either after getting a child or pregnant, but much effort and some kind of multidisciplinary network is required. That's all. Thank you.
Well, what can I say? I think Akiko is an absolute trailblazer in Japan. It is very rare to see women in an academic position, especially with two small kids and going to the field 11 times while breastfeeding is literally superhuman. So let's continue with yet another researcher, Raquel Simancas, assistant professor, again from the University of Tokyo, and her presentation is titled Microporous Solids for Environmental Protection. She will introduce not only her research, but also the aspects of working in Japan as a female researcher.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this event. I'm Raquel Simancas, assistant professor at the University of Tokyo, and today I would like to talk a little bit about microporous solids for environmental protection. This is the outline of my presentation, and I would like to start introducing some information about me. So I'm from Spain, from Madrid, where I studied my bachelor in chemistry. After that, I moved to Valencia to complete my studies of master and PhD at the Institute of Chemical Technology. Then, after completing the PhD studies, I moved to Japan and as a postdoc at Kanagawa University. And after that, I spent another 2 years as postdoc at Tokyo Institute of Technology. Finally, in 2020, I moved to the University of Tokyo as project researcher and then assistant professor. Now I would like to introduce a little bit about my research. So as I mentioned, I'm a chemist, and I mainly focus on green chemistry and sustainable processes. And in here you can find a list of the 12 principles of green chemistry. And among them, I would like to focus on the catalysis. And the catalysis is really important if we want to reach these goals of green chemistry and sustainable future. And a catalyst can be defined as a substance that increases the rate of a chemical reaction. And in this case, the catalyst lowers the activation energy of a reactant. You can see here in the graph that the reactant's energy is much higher than the products, and to transport the reactant to the products, we should overcome the pathway where intermediates with high energy should be overcome. And the catalyst is helping by reducing the activation energy of these intermediates. Not only this one, but also the catalyst could improve the selectivity to the desired products by limiting the formation of byproducts and impurities. And this is very important in order to save solvents and energy, as if our reaction is really selective to one product, the purification of this product is not needed or is more simple, avoiding the use of other solvents and other chemicals and reducing the cost in energy. So as I mentioned, I work with catalysts, and I work with one specific catalyst that's named zeolite. So zeolites are based on silicon and are silicon oxides based materials that are crystalline and possess a well-defined porous channels, and these spore structures or spore sizes of molecular dimensions. There are many different frameworks. These frameworks can be designed by changing the synthesis conditions. And as you can see in this schema, these channels can be different in sizes and also in shape. And these properties of the zeolites make them very useful for different applications. And today I would like to show 2 different applications that we are researching in our lab. So the first one is the use of these zeolites as ion exchangers. And this application can be used very useful for wastewater treatment. So in this case, imagine this wastewater flow showing or containing ammonium cations. If we introduce zeolite, where these channels can be allocated some cations as sodium cations, by these ion exchange properties, we can exchange these ammonium cations by sodium cations in the way that the zeolite will capture these ammonium cations and we will recover the clean water. So these zeolites that are solid materials can be recovered by filtration and we can regenerate them or store them or with many other things. And the second application that we would like to show you is the application of zeolites in the circular carbon economy. So in order to reach a zero carbon society, we have to think about not just avoiding the formation of CO2, but using this CO2 as precursor for the preparation of other products, and in that case, close the loop of the carbon cycle. And due to the properties of the zeolites, these materials can be used in several steps of these processes, but mainly due to the high surface area and well-defined porosity, are excellent CO2 captures. But also, this high surface could allocate high dispersed active metal species and therefore are very useful for CO2 conversion. And this is an example of a material that we have prepared. In this case, the active metal species, copper and zinc, that are active species for the CO2 hydrogenation to methanol, were dispersed and encapsulated into zeolite. And this zeolite was acting as support, and this support can stabilize these metals against sintering, the activation, and also preserving the high activity of the catalyst. And this work is part of an international collaboration between Japan and the European Union. This is our project where we are mainly in charge of the preparation of zeolites that are used as catalysts for the CO2 hydrogenation to methanol. And in this project, we are using different reactor systems, conventional heating, non-thermal plasma induction, magnetic induction, and microwave heating in order to optimize the reaction conditions, the methanol formation, and save energy. If you are interested or you would like to know more details about the project, you can enter on the website. And in the last couple of minutes, I would like to mention a little bit about how is the situation of female students and staff at the University of Tokyo. And here I would like to show you some graphs, some numbers about the number of female students and staff in our university. This is the total number and also ratio of male and female undergraduate students. And here we can see that the female ratio is around 20%. If we move to the master level, we could observe a little bit increase, close to 26%. And here I would like to highlight that the international students are also included. The gray line is not including international students, still close to 20%, similar to the undergraduates. But at this level, many international students are joining our university. And we can see something similar, but with more promising numbers at the doctoral level. Well, the number increased till 28. If we talk about the number of female staff, the numbers are much lower, close to 10% for full professors, 17.5% for associate professors. But I would like to highlight and remark that you can see the curve. The university is really making a big effort in order to increase these numbers, as we were coming from really low numbers, but this is in the proper direction. And finally, I would like to just mention one of the initiatives that is done by the School of Engineering in the trying to promote STEM career among females, in this case, high school students. So this is one of the initiatives of the School of Engineering, that is the Metaverse School of Engineering. In this platform, several activities are provided. One is the courses or lectures for junior high schools. Another one is for lectures for working professionals and university students, and also dissemination of other activities. And then I would like to just mention one of the activities that was done, that is the career guidance for female students. And in this event, some lectures by 3 female professionals about STEM was done, and the participation of female high school students was really high. So with that, I would like to highlight that if we want to promote female students in STEM, I think that one of the most important things is to show them, as an example, female professors, female professionals that are developing their career in these fields. And with this, I would like to thank all of you for your kind attention, and I hope that you will enjoy the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raquel, for the very informative presentation. Besides the application of zeolites and the closed system carbon recycling, we learned about the number of female researchers and female STEM initiatives at the University of Tokyo. And let me just say that Raquel is also a member of the circle that was founded by Akiko at the university. So both of them actually belong to the same set of very inspiring female professors. And that concludes the Japan panel. I would like to give the floor to my colleague in Korea. Tomasz, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Judith. Yes, let's turn to the east side. Yeah, no, west side. Sorry, west side from Japan, which is Korea. The only country between our 3 right now that is already associated to Horizon Europe that Mrs. Kim mentioned. It's a huge game changer because Korean scientists will be able to benefit directly from the EU funding schemes right now. Having said that, we are slightly behind the schedule, so I would like to invite Professor Chong, who is in the west coast of the US. So thank you once again. Thank you so much for your contribution, for your time, because I understand that time difference is really bothering right now. And the problem, you studied biological science and Korean literature, which is especially interesting to me because I also did study Korean literature. So that's something that we can discuss between ourselves. You obtained your PhD in neuroscience from the University of Texas, right? Southern Medical Center in Dallas. And you are actively engaged in different societies, Women Bioscience Forum, Korea, and also the Gender Equality Outreach event you participated, Korea EU CSO Gender Equality Outreach event. So I would love to hear you, and we all would love to hear your experience, your personal take, and your personal knowledge and know-how, and also feelings about the issue that we are discussing, which is imbalances in gender in academia. Professor Chong, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It is really my honor to be here today. I'm sorry if I'm a little sleepy, but I'm going to try my best to be awake. I'm going to talk about what we can do to have more women in neuroscience. Before we get to that, let me briefly introduce myself, but Tomasz already introduced myself very well. So I'm working on the neural basis of the emotion and mental disorders, and then I'm currently focused on neuromechanisms. I'm very actively serving as a member for the academic societies, but as well as I'm also working on these societies for advancing women's rights as well, because that's I really cherish. And I'm a mature mother of a daughter and a son. Luckily, it's very late at night here, so they are asleep. But before I had a meeting, but they were jumping into the meeting. So, but now they are asleep, so that's a very nice thing to do. So, what I said, what we can do to have more women in neuroscience, what I meant is in two senses, actually. We should have more women neuroscientists for sure. And also, we should include more women and female data in neuroscience as well. So I'm going to just go through both sides, highlight, and then I'm going to talk about that. Already, the China and Japan scientist panelists already highlighted the statistics. There are very few women at the higher levels. That's exactly the same for Korea too. I'm really sad that we three countries are sharing this. I hope like one of any countries can just break this share. I don't mind any country out of three countries. But here, as you can see, the pharmaceutical companies and then biotech companies, the employees are getting increase in case of the biotech companies, almost half of them, like 43% of the women employees from the total employee. However, as you can see that female executives are only 10%. And if you see the numbers, there are so many places that have zero numbers for the absolutely zero female executives. I think that's really problematic because there is no voice of the women in the field of that. So what can I do? What can we do to have more female neuroscientists at a very higher positions? I would say that probably requires a lot of political or some policy-wise policies, but there is a simple things that we can do. I thought about this a lot, and I've been serving as a lot of committees. This is what I noticed. This is the KSBNS is one of the Korean Society for Brain and Neuroscience 2025. And as you can see that there are 7 lecturers are highlighted here. When you look at closely, actually 4 white guys are plenary lecturers and 3 Asian persons are the CZK plenary lecturers because this year we are having this neuroscience meeting in conjunction with the China, Japan, Korea Neuroscience Society. So I was not exactly happy with the setting because all these, main stages are just given to this, 4 male white, especially white males. And then these CZK sections are just dedicated for females only. So that was a pretty, I was not exactly happy about it. And when you look at this symposiums, for example, I was looking at closely. I mean, I also served as the academic affairs, or actually I served as a chair last year too. But at the time, I tried so hard to put that requirement for that, like you have to have 1 female scientist in each symposium. I tried to fight for that, but it was very difficult to go through it, like because everybody said, well, it's better to have a female scientist, but if you have to do that, like, mandatory, it's going to be limiting the quality of sciences. So I couldn't really make it, and I'm really regret that. But when you look at the other societies, for example, like here, this is a FRM. This is one of the FENS, European Society for Neuroscience, like a small regional neuroscience meeting. They actually have like a type of proposal. They have detailed instructions for and guidelines. Here, eligibilities, both genders should be included in the proposed symposia. They can just verbally ask it as a requirement. So I think we should make it as a committee members. We should make a try to include more women for this. And also in my personal experiences, as I think Raquel just mentioned that you really need a lot of female, like role models around you. Then you can see a lot of female neuroscientists around you, like professors, researchers. If you see more of the, lectures from them, you're gonna encouraging a lot of future women, like future girls in science STEM areas. And when I was serving as this committee members, when I reach out for the plenary lectures or keynote lectures, they're always busy. I mean, I understand I'm so busy too with like all the family issues too, and then also scientific conflicts of interest as well. But what I learned that at the time, it is always important to say yes if you can. Like if you can stretch out a little bit, but still if you can manage it. I would suggest that anybody who is listening to this talk can accept the invitations, because if you accept the invitation, then you're going to invite 1 more girl into the field, into the event. So I think that's really important thing to do. So we can have more females to be included. When I look at this Nature Neuroscience journal, this is what they were publishing in 2006, but I'm so sad that's still the truth. They were saying that only 1 in 5 papers published in Nature Neuroscience has a female corresponding authors, and also that is similar decomposition of the referees, the reviewers as well. So I think if you get the reviewer invitations for the higher professional like journals and your expertise, I would like highly encourage you to accept the invitation and be a part of these academic societies. So we can increase the participations. And also we should be more about the references. If you know any female scientists in your field who has published in the same line as similar lines of the work, I think we should try to reference, like we should cite the female scientists' work more too, because that's the one way that you can make them recognized. I think it's very difficult, like in my personal experiences, when we have these committee meetings for this, actually the CZK neuroscience meetings, we decided to pick like names for representative for each field of the neuroscience, sub-disciplines of the neuroscience. And actually, it was very shameful, but in Korean society, come up with 10 names, only males. Because when you think about like a field of the depression or different, like a field of the, sensory motor cycles, you just automatically come up with males because they are recognized more, because they've been exposed more. So I think that I know we tend to be more humble, and then we feel like we are a little bit more, you're not that qualified, but I think you are qualified already. So you should be step up and then be participate. So I would say that like one way that what can you do to have more women in neuroscience, it would be like we should include other female like scientists. We can cite more of the female scientists' work, and also we can participate more if you can. What about we should include more women and female data in neuroscience in the research-wise? Well, actually, it is very sad, but we do not have enough data from women among females. And it's in 2023 in Nature Neuroscience actually published that only 0.5% of neuroscience studies look at women's health. But actually, when you look at a lot of neuroscientific diseases, neurological diseases are showing a lot of female prevalence. For example, like 70% of people with Alzheimer's disease and 65% of the depression patients are actually female. So there are many more women patients. However, the research has been focused on male rodent models or men's in the samples. Therefore, it has been our knowledge about this women health is very limited. Actually, when you think about this, like now we have more than 50,000 human brain imaging articles that has been published since the 1990s, but only 0.5% of them are about the women patients. So we have very limited data about the women's brain. And I think that's really problematic because as you see, like one of the examples, the field of my area, the research area, depression, when you look at it, as you can see, this is how many years of the liability females have, like if not twice, it's like more than 3 times of the longer life with the diseases. However, and then also the limitation of this research is going to lead to the efficacy of the antidepressants would be limited for the males because it has been set to male data only. So we can see that, for example, ketamine, one of the fast-acting antidepressants, which is very in a hot vibes right now, has a different impact on the male and females actually in the animal models, but it has been neglected so much. So next I'm going to introduce some of our research we've been dedicated for this, the sex differences in the depressions. I had a very talented female graduate student, Eun-hee Kim. We had published this article. Here, what we did is we simply stress them and then look at the brains in the different areas of the brains, which brain areas it has been activated. When you first look at it, the areas that were activated upon stress was pretty similar between male and female rats. However, when you take a closer look at it, when you look at the correlations between different areas, we did a further analysis about it. You can see this is how this control male brain looks like in overall, and this is when they're stressed out. And this is the female when they're in the before stress out, and then this is after they stress out. I just wanted to point out that when you look at the just colors, male brain is a lot more red before stress. However, and then both female brains are pretty blue. But when you look at that after the stress, female brain tend to be very red, and then males are less red. It's like more blue, meaning that male brains are more have a higher correlations before stress, but female brain gets more correlated, have a higher correlations between different brain areas after the stress. In other words, whatever the stress is, the same stress. And if you look at the just numbers, how much they are activated, they are pretty comparable. But when you look at the further analysis about it, you're going to get to find some differences. So as you can see that we found that sub-regions, sub-brain areas are connected in a different ways. So the connectivity can be changed. That means that because the levels of the activation was similar, if you give them the same drugs, it might not have as effective as the males and females, right? That's not going to be the same. So we have to include more and more female and women data into the neuroscience as well. But the obstacles are going to be, of course, it's much more challenging, right? Because it's much more complicated. So let's see, I wanted to introduce one of our other examples. This is the behavior test, which is showing that the animal, after the stress, they are going to be showing the more of the despair behaviors. They are more helpless behaviors. We can score them, but you may not be able to see all the dots, but there are a lot of animals, several tens of the animals. But when you have a small samples, those samples are not differ statistically. But when you look at the levels of those stress hormones in the blood, there's huge differences in females, but not in males, the same stress. So how can you look at that? When you look at these behaviors, when you look at just averages, nothing happens. So there's not much changes. But when because we had such a big collection of the data, we look at the group wises, then here by just the factor analysis, or this is about the clustering. When you look at the clustering, you can see the differences are revealed now. So females are much more highly depressed. And when you look at them, these are the each individual things are each individual animals. And then dark things are when they're moving, and the white things are when they are not moving. So when they're not moving is that they're not struggling because they are under the water, because they have to struggle. When you look at them, because in the calculations, it's just a 0 and 1. They moved or not moved. So traditional conventional research. So the color of this gradation doesn't take into account. So male and female may seem to have a similar rate of non-moving or moving kind of mobility ratios. However, when you look at when they are immobile, how immobile they are. When they're mobile, how mobile they are, right? So if you take into details, now you can reveal the differences. So that's why we perform the factor analysis. And then you see that we can reveal that there are many factors we can extract. Then we can see that there are much more higher differences can be revealed. What I'm trying to say here is that including females are different, including women's are difficult to do research. However, I think we should add more data from the female and women data into our research is going to benefit. I saw that from China and Japan, they are working on these plastics and the environmental biologies. So we had this nice collaboration with the other institution in Korea. We were measuring what happened to the nanoplastics when it is exposed to a pregnant mom, and then we were looking at what happened in their pup's brain with later on the offspring's brain later on, after a while, they exposed when they were pregnant, and then it has to be. Then we were looking at the brains of males and females and see the sexual differences too. So I think accumulation of these data is going to be very essential to have a more powerful, inclusion data, and then it can contribute to the women's and the females' health as well. That's because I'm almost the last person. I'm gonna just make it short to my talk. So I was just saying that what we can do to have more women in neuroscience, I think we should have more women neuroscientists, as we all shared. But for that, I think we should include each other, and then we should participate as much as you can, so we can be exposed more, and then we can be recognized more. And we should include more women and female data in our research as well. So if you can, and if it is like, if you can really do that, that is even though more complicated, but is absolutely and totally necessary. And perhaps I'm not actually currently participating in any this Horizon Europe grants yet, but perhaps this kind of grants can expand and support this research, and we can have more complicated research plans as well. So with that, I'd like to end my talk, and I'd like to thank again for this participating this International Day for Women and Girls in Science. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chong. Regarding Horizon, I'm here and I will definitely help you to get a funding at one point. So without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Hummel. Caroline, are you here? Yes, Dr. Hummel is here. Dr. Hummel is associated with the Institute of Basic Science, the Center of Quantum Nanoscience at the Ewha Women's University here in Seoul.
Thank you. I hope you see my slides already. Yes. Okay,
yes,
perfect.
Yes.
So thank you again for the invitation to this webinar. And for the next few minutes, I like to show my journey through science. So first, something about myself. My name is Caroline. I'm coming from Germany, precisely Saxony, and I was born and risen here in a little town near the Czech Republic. Since 2022, I'm here in Seoul, South Korea. I moved here with my partner and my 2 cats to pursue science more. So why am I interested in science? As a child, I was reading a lot of books, watched a lot of TV series dedicated to science, and I had great teachers and a really supportive family who was always behind my back. I decided to study at a technical university, Bergakademie Freiberg in Germany, and it is normal for a technical university. You have a gender aspect ratio of 60% male. But I studied applied natural science, and here we had 1-to-1 gender ratio. It was really nice. And just to give you a few overview what it means, so we got the basics of mathematics, chemistry, physics, and biology in our studies. And while most of my female colleagues went into biology, I decided to go more into analytical chemistry with a focus of forensic analytics. After I finished my master, I went on and went to an institute about energy process engineering. And as you can see here on this group picture, I was one of the few females in the institute, so the aspect ratio was more 7-to-1. But nevertheless, was a really nice institute, really nice experience. I pursued my PhD there, this time more focusing on power plant research, so analytics of feedstock for energy processes. Besides the normal science, I had to do a lot of project works with industry, but also have to teach. And as I said before, I went to South Korea and joined the IB Center for Quantum Nanoscience here in Seoul. It's situated on the Ewha Women's University campus, so you can see it here. And since it's a women's university, the aspect ratio in our institute is quite the opposite that I was encountered before. So here we have almost 60% of our researchers are female. And here we are studying fundamental physics. I was here research associate starting in 2022, and then I got my PhD, yay! And since then I'm a postdoc here at the Institute. My focus is here molecular compounds for spintronic devices. So I'm still deeply involved in analytical chemistry, but also quantum physics and synthetic chemistry. So you see, it's a lot of changes in the focus, and not all of these career steps were my first choice, but I never regret to do this, and especially because I learned a lot beyond the science. So you see all the skills I accomplished over the years, and one of the most biggest one for me is to be adaptable. So to adjust to different environments, to different challenges, to always adjust the language, not only Korean and English or German, also the language that dedicated to the special science. And what I saw that I'm really committed to increase and the visibility and representation for women in science. So this is one of my topics that it's really close to my heart. And there's this quote that says, the world needs science and science needs women. And I think that's really true. So how can we increase and support women in science? I want to show two projects. I was deeply dedicated back in Germany in a career orientation program that called Girls' Day. This was one day every year where girls can go into the STEM field, so they can go into industry or going into universities and learn for one day how it is to be a scientist or what to do as an engineer, for example. And since I'm here in Seoul, I joined a group that's called Women in Science at our institute. And I want to use the rest of my time to introduce about that. This group was founded 2022. It's completely self-organized inside our center. It consists of students, postdocs, senior scientists, engineers, and administrators. So the whole palette of all of our female employees. And since we are really international institute, all of the members are also international. And that makes it really nice to learn from each other's experience and to get an open minded for everything. Our goals are to create a safe place where everyone can speak up without getting any judgment. We try to take care and support each other, and so that every one of us can grow more self-confidence. What else are we doing? We are we try to improve career development for our members, also networking and advancing gender equality. I'd like to show you some examples about that. So for example, for the career development, we created a seminar called Career Coffee, where we invited female professors or scientific advisors from the embassy and experienced scientists to show their career path, to learn from them and to see what else we can do besides science. We also invite some experts to give workshops, for example, on time management, strategies for communications, or how to build your network. Besides that, networking is a really huge aspect of our work. We have the opportunity to meet with both young and experienced scientists because we got a lot of visitors in our institute. And we also had 2 times already the chance to invite high schoolers here to show them what we are doing, especially also as women in science. Besides that, we also grow our team beyond each other. So we organize workshops to share our knowledge and to exchange experience. So we are really nice group working all together. How do we advance gender equality? Of course, you have to stay informed. You have to read papers. We did a book club, for example, to learn about new aspects. And of course, we have to share personal experiences. Also, we have to discuss with others. Otherwise, we don't learn from each other. So for this reason, we created an Instagram account where we actually inform about our activities, our members, but also about female scientists from different centuries and their outstanding accomplishments. We inform about grants, and on our channel, you can also learn more about challenges women have to overcome. One of our biggest success was a panel discussion we organized during conference. The conference was at our institute, and 50% of the participants of the conference were coming to this panel discussion. And as you can see here, we had an aspect ratio of 1-to-1 male and female. So that shows to us that it's really necessary to talk about these and to listen to each other. And we want to continue with this series this year at another big conference. This is the biggest conference for the standing probe microscopy field, where we expect 500 participants. So yeah, a lot of things to do. And to conclude my talk, I'd like to show you highlights of strategies for supporting women in science that I encounter and think they are really necessary to keep everyone in mind. So we have to increase the visibility of women. So highlight your colleagues, your own success, to show it to others, to inspire others. Build your networks, be a mentor, use mentorship programs to create a big network, because we are stronger together and we can only change something if we are together. You have to find allies, also male allies, of course, because yeah, we can't solve anything by ourselves. Encourage changes where you see you want to change something. So for example, conference, invite female speakers. And then of course, lead by example. Even if you don't be a leader, be a role model. You are a role model. Maybe for your daughter, for your cousin, or maybe for a student that just started in your group. And with that, thanks again for the great opportunity to be here as a speaker.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamel. Thank you, Caroline, for sharing your experience, your insights, your know-how from Germany to Seoul.
Thank you so much for the very informative and insightful presentations. Much appreciated. And we have some questions, but we are going to combine them into just 2 or 3 as much as we can. I posted a comprehensive summary of some of the comments that we received from attendees. So the first 2 questions that, again, I would like to simply roll into one. What concrete steps can be taken to establish or strengthen these supportive communities where women scientists could work in Asia? And how can a culture be created where young female scientists could thrive? Who would like to answer the question? Unfortunately, there is no reference to who the query was addressed to, so we just have to play by ear. Anyone would like to respond to the question?
I think the panelist is going to have a better answer than this. So I'm just going to give you some time to think about it. I'm going to just give a few, like a brief of comments on what Caroline does. I think that's very impressive what she does. And that's exactly what you do in this bioscience forum and women bioscience forum. I think you should find your like a kind of gang, like, you should find your supportive group first. I think you can start from there. And then, as Caroline mentioned, you have a coffee time, you have just, connecting and networking. That's really, really comforting and supportive. And then you know that the failure story is not only yours. I think that's very comforting too. So I think what Caroline does in her university is very impressive. And that's exactly what we do in the Women's Bioscience Prom. We usually share our failed stories, like when I was an assistant professor, this was my when I was a postdoc, and then they were asking a lot of questions from the students or postdocs too, when should I have a baby? What is the best time? When do you think recommend to have a baby during the call, students, or during when you're having established your own job, like that? And if we can have all these experiences from all the panels or other, young people, I think that's really good. So I think you should find your group, and then if there's nothing, you can make one like a Caroline, right? I'm pretty sure that other panelists would be ready to have a better answer than me.
Thank you so much.
If I may just add on that, one sentence, something that I personally strongly disagree with, but it looks like a working policy to answer the question. Indeed, the answer for the question from the panel: quotas. Quota. 50% of researchers in this and that institute must be women. 50% of members of parliament must be women. 50% of board of directors must be women. I don't like it personally. I strongly disagree personally. But if you look at statistics, if you look at the policy from Nordic countries, for example, France and so on, it's a step forward. This is something to start with. I'm not saying, once again, I disagree with that, but quota, let's make it half-half by definition. That would be my answer to your question, to the question from the panel. Thanks.
I think it can be a very powerful drive until it can happen voluntarily, right? You have to do it, but if you do it, it's kind of, you see what's good about it, you have a, you have females, it's good, you can kind of learn, and then later you're voluntarily include women. I think that's going to happen, but it takes time in Asia, so perhaps.
Exactly, it starts with quota, and later it's voluntary, it's natural. Later on, it takes generations, I would say. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to comment on that?
I would like to add something. I felt like from my own experience as graduate students in the United States, and so what we have is that we have this called buddy program, so that you have like the students before you, they're years ahead of you, and then they can help you to navigate that. And then from there, you can have a support group, and then so that's what I would that's my 5%. And so just adding to that, and I think that having a group of a community, and like what Professor Chang said again of yours, and that will be maybe the starting point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Carlos, would you like to maybe pose the next question in the system?
Yes, and the next question is sort of a continuation of what Professor Wang just mentioned. There's a question asking for personal experiences of things that have been most effective in terms of receiving support or mentoring from your peers or mentors. What has worked for you personally?
Is there anyone who would like to answer the question? Feel free to grab the floor.
Yes. So I think the key for everything that's going wrong is communication, clear communication. You have to go to your peers, tell them what is wrong, why do you think it's wrong, and then ask how you can change it. This is not something that is from this point to this point done in 1 or 2 seconds, but if no one knows your problems, no one can change anything. So you have to communicate it clear, and also make sure if it's how you feel, why you feel this way, make it clear, and then also, find your allies that can support yourself and your things you're saying. And if your supervisor is not listening, you have always the chance to go to someone else, to a colleague of yours, or to the supervisor or someone else. You have to communicate, and I think that's the key for a lot of problems.
Yes, I would like also to add one part, and I totally agree on the communication part. And as foreign researchers working in China, I believe there is one part of communication. There is also another part related to cultural understanding. So sometimes what is obvious in my culture previously, maybe in my host country, is different. So for certain aspects, maybe the group leader is not supposed to give you the clear communications in terms, for instance, if you have certain questions, maybe in other community fields or in other groups, you might just go and ask directly. However, certain aspects can be more related to culture, but also on the expectation that your group leader can have on your work, because maybe especially working in very hierarchical sort of group. So you might not ask your group leader about how to use certain samples, but maybe to your peers or to other seniors in your researching group. And one aspect that was also raised also during these Q&A sessions before was actually what are the expectations for women in academia? Because when I did my PhD program, one of the questions and one of the requirements that was given to me, and it was pretty shocking, was that my group leader asked me, so if you want to be part of my group, you should not marry and you should not have kids during your PhD program, because it happened, he said, it happened that previously there was another foreign PhD scholar, and when she wanted to have baby, then she had to interrupt her studies. So that is a requirement from my side. And I was thinking, wow, this is so direct. How it's possible that we can have certain requirements? Because, of course, especially for certain cultures, or maybe also for personal reasons, some PhD students could or eventually marry or have kids during their PhD program. So I believe communication is very important, and also cultural understanding and expectations.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I would say
Closing
like
remarks.
don't go to the lab, like what just happened to Kadri, like Dr. Rossini. If the Europeans said that you should not have a baby, like that's really not the right lab to do. Sorry.
Thank you so
Right.
much.
I do
Please.
believe also it could be also on the policy perspective part, because in China, as a PhD student, you receive a student visa, not a working visa. So I believe also once you have like a family, or if you have kids that depend on you, maybe it will bring certain bureaucratic complications to the whole process. But I know of cases of PhD students that eventually have to leave and come back or interrupt for a certain period.
Especially if your spouse is a foreigner as well, right?
Yes.
This is when it's becoming
Especially when if your spouse is also a PhD student.
Minority. That's like a
then
minority.
you're doomed.
Okay, I believe we can proceed with the final closing chapter of our webinar.
Thanks, Judith, and thanks to all the speakers for their presentations and for their advice to the rest of us and to the audience. For closing remarks, I would like to invite Katarzyna Zalichowska here from Beijing. She is the head of Science, Technology, and Innovation section at the EU delegation to People's Republic of China.
Thank you very much, Carlis. And yes, my name is Katarzyna Żelichowska, but please call me Kasia. I'm the new science counselor in Beijing. I arrived in autumn. So as I heard that we had this event last year, so I hope that this is only the beginning of the tradition, and we will continue with these events in the years to come. So I think here the first conclusion, maybe the most important one to make, is the organizational one, that for the next one, we have to dedicate more time, because clearly it's an interesting topic and there's so many angles to talk about it that, 1 hour and a half, it's clearly not enough. So I will actually be very, very short, and I want to, first of all, thanks EURAXESS for organizing, for all colleagues who joined us, and of course, mostly to the great panelists who joined us regardless the time zone, and have shared their insight and also the personal, I would say, stories, because this is something that it's crucial, and yet it's not really well covered many times. So I think in general, when we talk about women in science, women in all fields, I would say, we can look at this from the policy point of view, where of course the EU can step in, and we do everything that we can to facilitate that. We can also look at the institutional level. We can also look at the cultural aspect. So there is actually so many ways to cover this. I will not talk about China because I think it was covered well enough. So maybe just to conclude, I really like the heading that Caroline had in her presentation when she wrote that world needs science and science needs women. And I totally agree, because in our level of work, meaning science, technology, and innovation, we always say that science is the key. Science is key to the future development. And basically, if we don't empower women to be part of this science, let's say, development, then we are losing on half of the world potential to actually solve the global challenges. And that's another aspect, because we, the Europeans, are here in Beijing, in Seoul, in Tokyo, fostering the international collaboration. And I think the rationale behind that is precisely the same, whether it's association, whether it's co-found actions. We want to put together the bright minds to work together. So actually we are stronger together, and we can solve all these challenges. But we can only do it if we also include women on all fronts. So I think that's something to keep in mind, and I hope we can help. And of course, we will be very happy to continue these discussions, at other events, and yes, and we can see what to do next together. So I think that's all from my side. So thank you very much for joining us. Yes, I see that Carlis mentioned that we have the newsletter. I mean, EURAXESS has the newsletter, so please register.
Thank you very
And
much. I can say with my colleagues, we all appreciate the contribution of our speakers today and the time you have spent with us. Sincere apologies for going over time, approximately 30 minutes. That's quite extensive. I hope that the attendees have had the time to stay with us during the entire duration of the webinar. I would like to encourage you to follow us on Twitter, which is X at this point, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also YouTube. And we have 3 portals in China, Japan, and Korea. So please make sure that you regularly check the web pages as well. I would like to say goodbye and give similar opportunity to my colleagues.
Thank you so much
to all of you. Thank you for your contribution, for participating, and for being with us and sharing your stories. It was really insightful and very informative. Thank you so much to all of you from Korea.
And from China, Happy New Year.